All right, High Rollers, quick shout out to all our sponsors at highrollerradio.net. We appreciate you as we do all our listeners. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at High Roller Radio. Okay, so UFC 215 is in the books, and as always, here to break it down for us is Michael Marr at Michael Marbled on Twitter, our resident go-to guy for all things Ultimate Fighting. Michael, welcome back to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back.
UFC 215, the title fight, Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko, went the full 5 rounds. On the UFC website, Nunes is listed as one of the night's big winners. The fact that she did go all 5 rounds and tested her cardio. Do you buy into that? Was she a winner on that night?
I mean, I definitely think she was the winner overall. I don't think it would have been the worst robbery in the world if it had gone the other way, but it would have been controversial for sure, certainly with the way the final round went.
The takedowns really helped her because, in my eye, Shevchenko was counter-punching beautifully and very effectively.
Yeah, I thought Shevchenko's striking was overall probably more effective. Tough for me to tell there since I'm not an expert, I'm not a fighter. But whenever Nunes was landing on Shevchenko, for the most part, she was getting defense on it, grazing shots, not taking the full brunt of the power, etc. Whereas Shevchenko landed some very nice shots on Nunes. I think it just in the striking where some of them might not have been so effective, other ones may have been, but might not have looked it. It probably was pretty difficult for some of these judges.
Yeah, I thought it was a good fight. I was very impressed by Shevchenko. Even off her back, she was landing some good shots. I guess with Amanda Nunes, it's probably because she didn't seem as effective against Shevchenko as she did against Rousey or Tate, where she just brutalized them. This was a very close fight, and Nunes got hit a few times.
For sure. I think a lot of where people seem to be a little disappointed is where there was a lot of periods of inaction because Shevchenko wanted to counter and Nunes didn't want to lead too much or push for the takedown and waste a whole lot of energy. But, it was close. I had it as 2-2 after the first 4 rounds. I thought, John tried to spark them up at the beginning of the 5th to try and, get things going. And the 5th round was much more active. I just think when Shevchenko went for that headlock throw and lost it, she gave up the back. That was the most significant error and capitalization in the fight, I thought.
Yeah, that was indeed a bad error on her part. It probably cost her the entire fight, the championship.
For sure. Definitely when she was on the ground, I thought she was doing good work, and she was definitely doing more damage, I thought, from her striking versus Nunes' largely holding position and watching time. But, it was the right thing to do to get this score, so.
A quick footnote, too. UFC 215 held in Edmonton, Canada, and you gotta love the Edmonton fans. At one point, the whole arena just started chanting, "Let's go Oilers."
Yeah, that's what I thought they were saying. Can't exactly say I'm shocked with how it went, but DJ had a fight where maybe some Canadian fans weren't so kind to him in BC a few years ago. Maybe it worked out for the best this way.
Yeah, you gotta love the hockey fans, right? Okay, so it was a good card. I don't know if I got the fights in order, but let's go to Rafael dos Anjos. He stepped in, and man, I thought Magny had a fighting chance in this fight, but I was wrong on that one, on all accounts.
Yeah, RDA looked fantastic on this card. Neil Magny's a very talented guy, but I don't know, it seems to me like he still hasn't quite put everything together. He's still young, still has time, got a great frame for the division. But yeah, RDA just ran through him for the most part. And I thought RDA also did a great job after the fight, in the interview. There was a whole lot of interviews that were good where fighters were showing their personality, but he was right on point. The entire 170 division is wide open. If anyone can make a serious run, they could probably get a title shot, and RDA legitimately might be able to get it.
Well, before we talk more about RDA, let's go back to, you mentioned interviews there. How about the Shevchenko interview? Man, was she pissed off or what?
She was. That's valid criticisms. I think Daniel Cormier put it best as soon as the fight was over and tensions were flaring between Nunes and Shevchenko after the bell. DC just said you had 25 minutes to fight.
Exactly. That is a good point. Okay, so RDA, he really made his mark on the 170 division. He moved up. He looked a lot healthier. He looked very impressive. I thought Magny was going to give him a challenge, but it didn't turn out that way. Has he got a chance to get that title at 170?
I mean, I don't want to count him out. I would probably favor Woodley in that matchup, just because Woodley's obviously going to have the size advantage, although it's not going to be as much as one. I'm pretty sure I've heard Woodley talking about being around 200 pounds, close to walking weight when he's walking in the cage after weigh-in. But RDA is quick at this weight class, and he doesn't really have a whole lot of holes in his game.
Yeah, I mean, he looked very good. He really made a stamp on it, and he's got the UFC executive really thinking about what his next move is. Henry Cejudo, man, this guy was impressive. I kept expecting him to take the guy down, but he didn't. He just stood, punched. He really kind of mirrored the Conor McGregor style of fighting. I found that very interesting because I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Young fighters coming up with that sort of karate stance.
Yeah, it definitely has lots of opportunity in the game as it is right now. Cejudo looked fantastic. I've been big on Cejudo since he came along. I was excited when he came in. I thought that this guy might be the biggest threat to Demetrius Johnson. It's just a matter of, are their timelines going to match up, because Cejudo's going to need time to get there. But yeah, I thought Cejudo's looked great in his last couple outings. I thought he should have gotten the nod in his fight last year with Benavidez. He looks so much better now. I mean, I thought Wilson Hayes was putting on an exciting showing, even though he lost in his last fight against Dominic Cruz. But yeah, he looked like he didn't deserve to be in there with Cejudo.
Those guys in the flyweight division can certainly move, and I'll tell you what, it was blistering attack from Cejudo. He looked so good, man. I was really shocked by how good he looked, and I can definitely see him fighting for the title again and maybe even winning it.
Yeah, I think he put it very well after his fight was over. You know, he was trying to be respectful for Demetrius Johnson, because DJ, his wife, and I believe DJ's father-in-law was in attendance, so he wasn't really trashing him so much. He's just asking him, "Hey, am I getting better?"
Yeah, and DJ was having fun with a thumbs up and everything. Let's talk about DJ real quick, because his fight with Ray Borg was called off. Borg dropped out due to injury. What do you think is next for Demetrius Johnson? He was there front and center watching UFC 215. What's his stake in the next play, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. They got to give him that opportunity to defend the title for the record-breaking 11th time. I mean, I don't mean to sound cold to Borg. Who it is doesn't really seem to matter at this point. Ray Borg's a guy he hasn't fought. He, brings some interesting things to the table, but I don't think it really matters if Demetrius Johnson fights another 125er at this point. I think he's gonna win. If a couple of years down the line, I think I'd really like to see Demetrius Johnson Henry Cejudo rematch for sure. But without trying to be mean, I don't really. It doesn't matter to me if it's Borg or if it's somebody else. If they don't give the shot back to Borg, or if his health situation doesn't straighten itself out.
Well, if Cejudo keeps looking the way he did on Saturday night, he'll have that fight with Demetrius Johnson and see if he can top Mighty Mouse. That is 100% guaranteed. Jeremy Stevens versus Gilbert Melendez. I tweeted this out as the fight was starting. This could be the fight of the night. I thought it was an interesting fight. It could have been a whole lot better if Stevens wasn't so savage on that lead leg of Melendez.
No kidding. If I remember correctly, it was one of his first strikes thrown. I don't know if the damage was done on that one. Probably not on the first one, but first minute, it was pretty bad. That lead leg kick to the calf, like we saw in the Junior Dos Santos Stipe Miocic fight. We've seen this kick elsewhere on the card as well. It's super common down there, and it's super effective. Melendez was in trouble right out of the gate. I thought the fight was super engaging. I don't want to say it was a great fight. I thought both guys did very well, particularly Melendez adjusting with the coaching from his corner at the beginning of the second round as well as at the beginning of the third. It was one of those fights where you get so wrapped up into the survival of Melendez, whether you've been a fan of him for the 15 years he's been fighting or not, that you almost don't give enough credit to how good Jeremy Stephens actually looked this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Stephens looked incredible. And you talk about Gilbert Melendez. What kind of heart has this guy got? At one point, late in the fight, he got hit, went down, backwards somersault, right back up on that damaged leg. Even Stephens had to give him a high five. But you mentioned the interviews off the top, and I thought Stephens was very frank and honest in his interview. He says, I looked at the tape. Melendez has been around for so long. He's a wily veteran, but the game has passed him by. And I found that to be very telling because you look at the state of the UFC now, what Conor's done with all the money up for grabs, the bonuses, the big pay-per-views. A lot of young guns are coming out of the woodwork, and they're just experts in all areas.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Last year, I think it was the 205 press conference, maybe it was before that. Jeremy Stephens was speaking up at a press conference that Conor McGregor was at, and we all know that Conor McGregor knows who's who in the division. He knows who Jeremy Stephens is, but who the fuck is that guy? Took off and just crushed Jeremy Stephens at the time. Like he's doing good. He's not the greatest fighter in overall. Like you look at the fight that he had against Max Holloway. Max Holloway picked him apart with his footwork and everything, but he's still working with what he's got, making improvements. Guys like Gilbert Melendez and the Diaz brothers have had issues with their lead leg being vulnerable to leg kicks and not checking leg kicks for years. It's been the biggest issue with their game overall. But, I mean, if he can make it work, that's great.
Yeah, it was an entertaining fight. A lot of heart displayed by Gilbert. Jeremy Stephens just too good on the night. And if he keeps up with that intensity, you see that primal scream in victory. He keeps that up and keeps adjusting his game. He's got a real shot to rock that division. Am I missing another, before we talk about Gavin Tucker, Rick Glenns, am I missing another fight on the pay-per-view?
There was the Tyson Pedro, the hot prospect from Australia, fighting Ilir Latifi, and that was, I believe, the second fight on the match, or the pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's right. Tyson, I mean, he's got a lot of talent. He looks really good, but he came up with against a veteran, didn't he?
Just a bulldog. I thought Pedro was very interesting. A lot of interesting kicks, a lot of interesting feints. Exciting amount of potential. So the way the fight seemed to play out for me, I thought, the first half of the first two rounds were largely Pedro's success, but once Latifi I don't know if he was taking his time to let the guy tire out a little bit or just wait to go after the takedowns after a little bit of striking. After he would engage that takedown, Pedro had very little for him, especially after the big slam in the second round where Latifi brings him down on his head and shoulders with all his weight. It seemed like he didn't really have a whole lot to answer to that emotionally, if not just technically.
I thought we were going to see a broken neck there. That slam was vicious, and Tyson's no small character. He's a big guy, and you're right. He did display a lot of feints and agility and prowess, and he's got a great future. No?
Oh, I'm super excited. I don't want to sound, sadistic here, but I almost like seeing up-and-comers kind of face adversity early in. I want to see him learn from this. I want to see him come back with the kind of improvements to his cardio, maybe that we've seen from Nunes. If he can just keep working on his takedown defense, there's not going to be that many guys that are going to take him down worse than Latifi, especially with that body type. Pedro's 6'3", Latifi's 5'10", maybe 5'11". It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and Tyson, he's got those thick tree trunks of legs. I mean, I love the kicks. I think if he works on the cardio, like you said, he works on that takedown defense, this guy's going to be a threat in a few years' time.
Yeah, super exciting. Looking forward to seeing this guy's next fight for sure.
Okay, lastly, before we let you go, on the undercard, there was a pretty wicked confrontation between Gavin Tucker and Rick Glenns. Gavin Tucker, a Canadian prospect, I believe he was undefeated coming in, takes on a wily veteran in Glenns. And man, this turned sour for Tucker in a hurry. Glenn's just too good at the end of the day, right? Just too vicious. And the referee, well, let's look at this. Two fractured orbital bones, another vertical fracture in the jaw for Tucker. He had blood all over his face. Many people thought the referee let it go too long.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted in this one. I haven't gotten a chance to see the fight myself, but I have looked at the media for it. Certainly, if the beatdown was that significant over the course of 3 rounds, you probably got to stop the fight at that point. Tucker had put a post on, I think it was Instagram, where he talked about the referee, Kyle Cardinal. He apologized to him personally at the hospital, and he's absolved him of blame. That's cool. I'm glad that he's staying positive about it, but I don't know if I necessarily want to see Cardinal officiating again. And considering this is the Edmonton Combative Sports Commission, which just a few months ago had Tim Hague die in a boxing match that they oversaw, it raises a lot of red flags.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I mean, I was screaming at the TV set, stop the fight, stop the fight. But, I guess in that statement, Tucker says, hey, the referee let me go out on my shield. It's one thing to go out on your shield, but when you're a young guy and you want to fight for a living, a career, and make it a lengthy one, you can't go out on your shield too often because it causes permanent damage. I mean, it's a dangerous sport.
It shouldn't be up to the fighter to decide. If it's a spot where it's Gilbert Melendez standing up and maybe there's some damage there, maybe it's just pain, okay, the fighter wants to continue, that's one thing. But when a guy can't even stand up, like what?
Yeah, well, we talked about Melendez heart. Tucker had a lot of heart too, but he was just outmatched. Glenn's was just too good in this one. Hey, we got to talk about stopping the fight. We haven't talked to you since the Mayweather McGregor fight. Real quick, your thoughts on what went down that evening? Did you like the fight? What did you think?
I was quite entertained. I thought McGregor had significant successes. I think for the most part that had a lot to do with Mayweather probably affording him a lot of opportunities to try and really figure him out before he put the work to him. But I was. I thought he did better than he was expected to do. I certainly was rooting for McGregor. I don't want to see the McGregor ride stop ever. That being said, I'm not going to pick anyone to beat the greatest boxer ever in a boxing match.
Yeah, I was definitely pulling for Conor. I love the fact that he threw a few hammer fists down on the top of Floyd's head, and I was just hoping that when Floyd turned his back, I think he did it 4 or 5 times, that McGregor would have just unloaded instead of a Holly Holm type kick on Ronda, just a left hook on Mayweather, but it just never came to be. He certainly did MMA proud, I'm sure, and a lot of people had turned heads after seeing how far he went.
Absolutely. I don't think that you can really argue that Conor walks away a loser from that. I mean, at the very minimum, just from the $100 million plus payday that he's expected to have received, then not really a loser.
Yeah, no kidding. Not only that, Michael, but just the way he handles the interviews afterwards. He's very honest. He's humble. He breaks it down just as he sees it, and he tells the truth. I mean, I think the fans appreciate that.
Absolutely. I straight up took part of his post-fight speech from the first Diaz match where he lost, where he claims to be humble in victory and humble in defeat. I use that in my own warm-up for poker.
Well, there you go, man. Hey, appreciate the time, Michael. Glad you enjoyed the fights. At Michael Marbled on Twitter. Michael Marr, our guest today. Michael, thank you, man.
No problem, Derek. Catch you next time.